Does everyone see the recording on their end?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Diego, do you want to chair this meeting?
No, I actually have an announcement. If I can make an announcement. I personally feel like I need to step down as co-chair, just because I don't think I can do the position justice. I'm just stretched so thin. I work 2 jobs. I organize, and I'm probably gonna go back to grad school pretty soon. So I would rather see the sustainability committee in its infancy be spearheaded by people who have the time and, the expertise and the bandwidth to really just take it forward, because that's really what our community deserves. And I don't want it to, stand in idleness. Just like I said, the community deserves better than what I can give right now. And so I would still love to remain in the committee. I just don't think I can function well as a co-chair with my bandwidth right now.
All right, Diego, thank you. And then any other committee member? Oh, Melanie?
Totally get it, Diego. I don't know how like co-chair stuff works, and obviously like I'd want to hear from Joe also, but always happy to help wherever needed. So anything I can do to help take any pressure off, whether that's doing more to help you guys or being co-chair. But again, I obviously would prefer like a community member of color to be in that position, but I'm here if needed.
Thank you, Melanie. And I think we'll make an announcement in our next agenda. When we put it out, that'll be an agenda item that we're looking for a co-chair, and that Diego will remain in the committee. So it's something to think about.
Cool.
Maybe I can put a small description on what co-chairs do. That way it'll give everyone an understanding. And then when Johanna gets it, we'll give everyone the opportunity to step up to it if they want to, if they have the time. Okay, so we'll start the meeting. It's today is February the 23rd. It's 6:05. We call the meeting to order. Roll call. In our committee, I'm just gonna go down by the names that we have right now. So Melanie. Melanie?
I'm so sorry, I'm here.
Okay, Chente, Vincent, me, here, Diego.
Here, and I'm also still taking notes in case we need to submit our minutes, just so that way it's not a lot on you, Chente.
No, thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure you knew.
Nancy?
Here.
And Johanna, who's absent.
Selena is also on our committee, and I'm assuming she's absent as well.
Yes, Selena, and then we have 2 absents, and the rest of us are here, and we have quorum. Okay, we're going to open it up to non-agenda public comment. If the public wishes to make a comment, they can do so by pushing *9 or using the little hand icon. We have Wendy C. Wendy, if you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Hi, thank you. This is Wendy from Mayor Eric Garcetti's office, the East Area Representative. I have been trying to connect with both you, Diego, and Vincent via email about partnering up for the Green New Deal initiative. And I haven't heard back, so I was asking in the last email when the sustainability committee was being hosted, and it's today. So I was like, let me just hop on there and check in with them real quick.
My apologies.
No, of course.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it here, and then we have a section in our sustainability where it has government reports, and we usually give 3 minutes there. But if you want, you could do it here since we have no other public comment, or if you want to wait to government reports, we can put you on government reports.
It's up to you, to y'all. I can do it in either or section.
Okay, let's wait to government reports, and then you can give us an update there.
Thanks.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, we have no more public comment. I'm going to close public comment. And we're going to open it up to community and committee member announcements. If there's anybody in the public that wishes to make an announcement, you can do so by pressing *9 or raising the little hand. I don't see any. I'm opening it up to committee member announcement. Anybody in the committee want to make an announcement? Raise your hand and then I'll know if anybody. Diego?
Yeah, just to reiterate, I just want to formally resign from co-chair, and I also want to extend an apology to Wendy. It's partly why I realized that I really, I can't do the role justice, is because I barely can catch up on my email. So I really apologize, Wendy, on the sus committee's behalf. But yeah, just wanted to make sure that that was formalized in this section.
Thank you, Diego. Melanie?
I don't know if it's the right time to bring it up, but I just wanted to make sure that all sustainability committee members were aware of, what's going on down at the Welch's site. Seems like it's something that's right up our alley. So is that can I just briefly bring that up right now, or no?
Yes, Melanie. Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm sure you guys already know, but just in case. So, where the Avenue 34 development is supposed to take place, right next door is where the Welch's industrial dry cleaner was located. So they've been given the okay by DTSC to pave that lot in order to make a staging for a parking lot for construction when it, I guess, does begin at Avenue 34. But they are tearing up the current asphalt, which was not a part of the work order that's posted. There's nothing about tearing up the asphalt. There's only things about adding new asphalt. So they've torn up asphalt. They've made a huge pile of asphalt, I believe is with outside of the range of what's permitted or allowed. So the air quality inspectors are on that. They did say they believe the pile is outside of what's permitted. They don't actually have permits to be doing it, and they are tilling up the land. And there's, as you guys know, it's been really windy here the last couple days. They had water spraying going on today to help mitigate that, but they did not yesterday. And there's still a huge amount of dust coming off that property. And then of course the kids at Hillside are all outside playing on the playground while all this is going on. So I just want to make sure that everyone on this committee was aware and, making calls obviously to CD1 and Monica Garcia's office. But just want to make sure you guys are in the loop there.
Thank you, Melly, for your report. Okay, I don't see any more board members with announcements, so we'll close announcements and we'll move down to item number 5, government reports. Wendy?
Thank you so much. So no apologies needed. You all are doing this on a volunteer basis, and I have been there before, so I completely understand. We're still in the pandemic. We're still trying to be working while we're in a pandemic and experiencing all types of insecurities and mental health and just worries that we have across the board. So no need to apologize. I completely understand. I thank all of you on the committee and on the neighborhood council for the work that you've already done and will continue to do for the betterment of your community and to keep everybody safe. So no worries about that at all. If you do hear any noise, it's my dog. I think, somebody's delivering something outside and he's going a little crazy. So I apologize for that. But on my end, and I can send it via email as well. So the Green New Deal Neighborhood Council Toolkit is an opportunity for neighborhood councils to engage at the local level and be able to try the different types of initiatives that there are within the Green New Deal that was released in 2020, right after the pandemic happened. And so part of my job is also to engage, neighborhood councils, community members, and see how we can essentially try to initiate and or support from the mayor's office, trying to have some of these initiatives the neighborhood councils come to life and come to fruition. So that's basically the opportunity that the Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Council has an opportunity to participate in. There will be like a presentation that will be provided to the board members if you all would agree to move forward with this, or just to get a little bit more information on it. And then I would support in trying to figure out what initiative y'all would like to do. So there's about 7 different initiatives, and one of them, just for example, is planting free trees in the neighborhood, or identifying locations that the city can come out, LHNC specifically can come out and plant some new trees. Tree giveaways, there, folks can also come and pick up some trees and then take them home with them and plant them in their front yards or in their backyards. Figuring out if there's a location in the community that we could start a community garden. So those are just a couple of the initiatives that neighborhood councils have the opportunity to participate in. And I can send the link, because I don't think there's a chat. Yeah, there's no chat. So I can send the link for the website for the different initiatives that there are, and the toolkit for neighborhood councils. And that's pretty much it, just to see if y'all are interested in doing something like this.
Thank you, Wendy. Diego has a question, and then we'll allow the public to ask a question. And if any other board member committee member wants to ask one, just raise your hand. Diego?
Thanks, Chente. Yeah, so thank you, Wendy. That's fantastic information, and that sounds like a great resource for our neighborhood councils. I know for one, Lincoln Heights certainly deserves more trees, more street trees, a community garden. We don't have a community garden space, and we have a very rich history of growing our own food and local food production. So all these initiatives sound wonderful. So my only question for you, Wendy, just so that way we can identify what initiative is a best fit for our community and how we can realize that is, are there any sort of resources attached to the toolkit, like say funding, or like, I don't know, how does the Green New Deal under this program support neighborhood councils in a more particular way besides identifying an initiative? I don't know if my question makes any sense, but I'm happy to clarify.
It absolutely does make sense. So yeah, so right now, for example, the LHNC is actually giving out free trees, and it would mostly be myself connecting, and it'll be from the city, right? Or budgeting from the city that's already been allocated for free trees, especially in communities like Lincoln Heights, like Boyle Heights, like MacArthur Park, where we already see that there is not enough greenery, enough shadow, enough, my words are not coming to me, enough shade, right, from trees, and it's already a little bit hotter, and with the climate, changing as it is, there's definitely been an effort to identify what these communities are, and not only just identify, but redirect funding or redirect funds to make sure that these communities are reached out to be able to plant new trees, to build community gardens, among other things that would help the community be a little bit more green, but also help the community improve air quality, help the community just get a little bit more involved in trying to better that community, right? So there already has been communities that have been identified that are in need, or have historically, as I like to put it, have historically been exploited, right, in the past. And so how do we make that right, and how do we make sure that we're able to try to make things right now, and how do we support communities at the local level to be able to do that, given that we're coming out of a pandemic. There were a lot of positions that were either furloughed or let go during the pandemic. And so the city is still hiring and is still behind on a lot of the services that we normally in a non-pandemic world would be able to offer. So how do we try to mitigate that right now to be able to help these communities get the some of the support that they need? So there's definitely, all of that to say, there's definitely already allocated funds that have already been sent out to departments and are already looking for communities to be able to do this and to be able to build the structure on the outside at the local level to support bettering these communities.
Thank you, Wendy. Melanie?
Wendy, thanks for coming and giving us this information. I imagine like as this is all going on, the initiatives will kind of adjust as needed to community needs. I'm sure we've been singled out as a community in dire need of assistance in this regard. I guess the one thing that maybe I'd ask you bring back to Mayor Garcetti is just express to his office that tree giveaways and all that are nice and always welcome, but it really does put the responsibility on the backs of the community members who are already being marginalized and abused by like the policies that are already in place. So whatever could be done to make sure that the city is providing us with what we deserve just as humans, and providing resources to us to help fight against things that are like currently and actively causing harm to our community, like these harmful developments and these toxic waste dump sites that we're subjected to, and just making sure that the office is there for us when we need them, and not just throwing money behind initiatives like this and being like, well, we put this much money into Lincoln Heights, so we've done our part. We really need you guys to be active with us and fighting against these things that are currently, putting our lives at risk. And our kids' lives at risk. So I just wanted to express that, let you know we are in like an emergency state here with what we're dealing with environmental wise, among a whole host of other things. But the community is stretched pretty thin. I as a council member am like happy and ready and willing to do whatever it takes, but I don't want to put the responsibility on the backs of our community who's already just exhausted and tired and sick because of the policies in place that allow these atrocities to be brought down upon them. So just wanted to express that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mel.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, Lincoln Heights was not selected on the back end. It was actually a decision from my end. I have lived in Boyle Heights for almost 10 years now, have been a very active participant in my community here in Boyle Heights, and a lot of the issues that Lincoln Heights face are very similar to the ones that Boyle Heights faces as well, right? So it was actually a choice on my end to seek out Lincoln Heights NC for support and to identify to do a project like this. It wasn't something that was decided on the back end of, Lincoln Heights is already at a disadvantage, so let's kind of throw some trees at them and see how we can work together. It was more so a decision on my end because I know that you have a sustainability committee, right? So I already know that there's community members that are invested in bettering the community and had shown interest in potentially partnering up and doing this. And B, it was, it is one of the communities that does need additional support and oftentimes is overlooked by, city officials. And so I wanted to make sure that I pick communities to reach out to partner up on this initiative that I knew needed it. And I knew, historically tend to be overlooked because there might not be as many community members that are active as, other neighborhoods if you drive west, right? So this was actually a decision on my end to pick Lincoln Heights. And I also agree with you in terms of putting it back, the ownership, putting it back on the city versus community members. So the tree planting is just one of the examples. I actually sent the toolkit to, I just emailed it to Diego and to Vincent as well right now, if you all would like to forward to the rest of the committee. It's online, and you can kind of go on there and look at it. I just threw that one out there because that seems to be one that's been very popular with the neighborhood councilors, or just not even with the neighborhood councilors, just in general with community members wanting to get involved as well. It has been, tree planting, but specifically some of the trees, especially when it's on private land, well, obviously the city can't go on and plant trees for folks on private land, right? But if it's on a city sidewalk or on public property around schools, especially, that actually wouldn't engage any community members to come and do the labor of digging a hole and planting a tree. That it actually would be the city that would be doing that. And paying for that as well. So it's more so identifying locations where trees are definitely needed, and then letting me know, letting LHSAN know, and then us scheduling to make sure that those trees are, planted and are watered at that too, right? Because they also need to be watered since they're baby trees. So I just threw that particular initiative out there, and then I shared about folks potentially picking up some trees to plant in their front or backyard, because I know folks, Lincoln Heights, there's a lot of mamas like mine, right, who loves her fruit trees and loves all her trees in her front and her backyard. And so I know that that's definitely something that the community members tend to get involved in, and that's how they may not understand the overarching environmental crisis that we're in right now, but they do understand how important it is to have a tree in their front yard or in their backyard, right? And that's how they give back, versus, attending a sustainability meeting and, giving public comment, because that, they might not be able to understand that arena as much. So I just threw that out there. It's definitely not something that we have to do in Lincoln Heights. It could be very much just the committee and the board just helping us identify locations in Lincoln Heights where we think this would be a great place to plant a tree. Think about around elementary schools or around just schools in general, where maybe there's pavement and there's no grass for them to be able to sit on. And if we plant trees around there, they'll be able to have some shade for those hot days, that come around and stay around in the fall.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks, Wendy.
And I just want to, I can't raise my hand, so that's why people don't see it. I always wait till I'm at the end. But Wendy, I was looking at the email you sent over, and I'll definitely get it to the other committee members, and we'll share it also too with board members. But as I look through it, I always look at what the city has in their plans when they incorporate into the public. But I'll give you an example, like your electric car, solar panel, and help business with certified green. A lot of this stuff comes with not the understanding of the education of how it affects communities of color, which I always know that in these sustainable plans or green plans, they're missing the component of affordability. And in a lot of ways, they become discriminatory processes to low income areas. The average person cannot afford right now an electric car at its price. So that excludes them from participating in this, in the Green Deal. But because the infrastructure is being created for electric cars, the person who cannot afford is going to rely on gas car. But that is being X'd out of the state. This is statewide. And I think, to me, those are the conversations we need to have on how these things affect communities of color, disadvantaged communities, right? Because when I look at like a tree planting, like Melanie and Diego, it's not that it's not important, but to a Latino community that's really making it, that has to look at these new policies that are going to be affecting the city, it can be terrifying to understand, how will I pay for a $60,000, $70,000 car? And then let's say I can afford that. How can I save up for the maintenance if my battery pack goes out? Because I've been hearing these horror stories of the Tesla battery, right? Almost 75% of what the car is worth is what your battery is going to cost. And to me, those are the conversations we should be having to understand this a little bit more, and more financial information, like on solar panels, right? how can we get them so that we can get the state county projects, you know, and the discounts, and how do we keep that discount within our household so we don't lease and then find out later that basically we got charged so much, you know, more than what we needed to. Those types of things would embrace what our community, I believe, needs the most, and what I hear talking to them about sustainability and green deals. But like I said, you don't have to respond to it. I'm just saying this would be something, and I know you guys talked to this about the mayor, like Melanie said, these are our concerns to take back and really have these real discussions, because to talk about a car that I cannot afford and incorporate also gives the false illusion to the city, which they have used it in the past to say, hey, Lincoln Heights kind of embraces the electrical car because they engaged in the conversation about it, and that's not always true with it. And I often see that miss in our communities, that they need to engage in real subject matters that really affect our people. But
Yeah.
I just leave that, and I don't want to, you know, take up too much of the time. But
No, not at all. I appreciate that y'all are advocating for a community that oftentimes, like I said earlier, oftentimes I think about my mom, right? And she was an immigrant here. She's been here over 50 years, and she speaks English. I know she does because I've heard her, but she won't speak English in front of me. And oftentimes a lot of this information, even though you look at the NC toolkit and there's a Spanish language one, right? On monitor and improving your air quality for neighborhood and household. Even if I shared that with her, even if I read that to her, she wouldn't be able to understand it, right? And so I can assure you that on my end, I definitely am taking this information back to the meetings that we're having, to the trainings that we're having, and even the presentations that are being developed to be provided to communities. And not only myself, my colleagues as well are also advocating that we need to make sure that we're not excluding communities and individuals who might not understand the terminology that has, been created around environmental justice, right? Recently, Mayor Eric Garcetti did appoint a climate emergency mobilization director. Her name is Marta Segura, and she has a ton of experience in specifically working in underrepresented communities, making sure that they're not left out, making sure that they're not excluded from these conversations. And we actually met with her last week, my team and I, and she shared a little bit about herself, about her history, right? I'll also send a link for her as well to y'all, for y'all to share. And I welcome this information because I'm at my end, when I come back and I have these conversations with my office, I'm advocating the same thing that y'all are advocating, right? And some of my colleagues are advocating for us to make sure that we're being inclusive of the communities that it's going to affect the most. And the reality of it is that it will affect communities of color the most, right? So I'm making sure that I am being an advocate. So I, thank you for speaking up, and thank you for bringing this to my attention. I definitely will take it back and continue to share this. And I think that that's just, another reason for LHNC to be involved, because you're not just doing it for like the photo op, right? Or you're not just doing it because it looks nice. You really are doing it because you care about the community and you care about those individuals who might not have a voice in the community. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to take on this role, right? When I was given the opportunity, was because I did want to make sure that I did represent the East Side in a way that heard the voices that are oftentimes told that they're not important, or are oftentimes told that they're maybe not directly told that they're not important, right? But they're oftentimes ignored. And I wanted to make sure that I was elevating those voices that oftentimes are not heard. at the higher level where like the big decision makers are making these decisions. So I 100% agree with you. And this is definitely something that I will take back to my team and to my higher ups to make sure that it is addressed, and we are engaging community members and taking into consideration how financially and every other way it might exclude communities like Lincoln Heights, like Boyle Heights, like MacArthur Park, because I think that that's not what the purpose is behind this, but oftentimes because we're not at the table making those these policies, right? Oftentimes, we are forgotten a lot of times.
For sure. Thank you, Wendy. Our next committee member is Nancy Soto, and then Diego, and then we'll open it up to Mr. Adams and the public.
Hi, Chente, thank you. Hi, Wendy, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for being here with us. I just wanted to point out that Lincoln Heights is 77% renters. So it's important for, them to, like, renters to be included. We are mostly renters here. So even like fruit trees, only a very limited amount of people can enjoy that, who are property owners. So I just wanted to point that out because I think it's important for renters to also have initiatives and resources and to be included in this Green New Deal package. So, just I'm just here to for you to take note of that.
Yeah, no, Nancy, and that's definitely something I brought up today as well, right? With, when I had a meeting with my director, I shared, I'm a renter as well, right? And I shared, we're moving towards these electric vehicles. I don't have an electric vehicle as of right now. And I shared, I'm trying to think of, I have street parking. I don't know how parking is in Lincoln Heights. I imagine it's very similar to Boyle Heights, but I shared, if I have an electric vehicle, where am I going to charge my vehicle? I can't, I don't have a home where, my landlord who lives right next door to me in the duplex, but she doesn't have an outlet for me to just connect my vehicle. And I'm just trying to think of all of the folks that are renters, right? That in the communities like ours, where they're not going to be able to hook up their cars to charge overnight. And so then they're going to have to go to these public sites to charge their cars and potentially get charged, right? So yeah, I definitely hear you on that. And that is definitely something that I have brought up as well with a lot of the initiatives for the Green New Deal that are wonderful in hindsight and will be wonderful for our children and our children's children, but are also going to be really hard for our communities.
For sure. And thank you, Nancy, for bringing up that important point, because I think it ties into a lot of what we're talking about. Diego?
Yeah, I know I already commented. I'll make it quick. But I just wanted to, again, thank you, Wendy, for coming to our council. I have to admit, I'm super, I just feel like you're a fresh breath of air because I'm very familiar with how the city works. I've worked with multiple departments like Rec and Parks and, LHWP and just tons of departments. And I know how bureaucratic it can get. And I know how distant it can be from the realities of our community. And just to have someone from Boyle Heights, it's not Lincoln Heights, but you understand our lived experiences. Just to have someone advocate for Lincoln Heights, I think would make a world of a difference for our community. And I think our job as a neighborhood council is, not to have this dialogue, to encourage it within our community, because that promotes self-determination, but also to help the city identify what our community needs. We're the liaison between the people of our community and the city. And so I certainly want to work with the committee and use this toolkit to identify what is realistic, what is super meaningful for our community and what is not, and then work with the city to realize that, because that's really what our community deserves, is someone to advocate on behalf of our community and to work with the city to realize that to the greatest extent possible. So thanks, Wendy. I really appreciate you.
Of course. Thank you, Diego.
Okay, we're gonna open it up to the public question, and we have first Mr. Adams.
Yeah, hi everybody. I had a question as far as what has the impact been calculated, the benefit of this program been calculated to Lincoln Heights or to the city in general? And what is the budget that you guys currently have for this program, whether it be the specifically the tree giveaway, or the entire Green New Deal? Thank you.
Hi, yeah, so I don't have the numbers right in front of me. I can definitely send a link to Diego and to Vincent. There, in terms of what the budget is, I want to say it's in the millions of dollars, but it's not just going to go to Lincoln Heights. So again, there have been communities that have been identified, one of them being Boyle Heights. When I was in the neighborhood council for Boyle Heights, we were approached about planting trees, right? And identifying some locations where trees could be planted. So there have been particular communities that have already been identified, as we want to make sure that we are, planting trees in this area. And so it just depends on the grants that LHN has applied for, and where those grants have fallen along which community. For example, I know that Boyle Heights has a grant for planting trees, but I don't think that there's one that has been matched for Lincoln Heights. But there is like a larger budget for just planting trees in general and trying to make particular communities that are in need of, trees and shade a little bit more.
Has the benefit been calculated, or is this just like a beautify project?
It's not a beautify project, and I'm trying to pull up, and I apologize for not being prepared for this, right? For this question in particular. I thought I would be invited to a future meeting, and then I, would have all this information prepared. So let me pull up that presentation, but there have been already some trees that have already been planted, or this has been going on for quite some time. Okay, so I pulled up the presentation. So increasing tree canopy by 50% by 2028, plant and maintain 90,000 trees citywide. There are particular, so the Boyle Heights Green Infrastructure grant that I mentioned right now is $2,265,000, but that also includes, right, paying folks to be able to come out and plant the trees. That includes watering the trees for 2 years. That includes it's also included to make a hole in the concrete, right, so that trees can be planted on like the sidewalk in that sidewalk area, so that part of the sidewalk will be taken off the concrete, and then it, tree is able to be planted there. The types of trees that obviously are being bought for this. So it just depends on kind of which grant you're looking at. So there's a couple of different grants. So there's one for Vermont, there's one from Greater Greener LA, there's one from Shade LA, Tremendous, Root for Future, Slauson Corridor, and Green Filtration. So in total, LA San and what they have, and this also comes from like California Fire, the California Natural Resources Agency, Prop 68. In total, I think it's $10 million, approximately $10 million that have been allocated. Some specifically for some areas, right? Like I talked about the Boyle Heights Green Infrastructure, and then the Vermont Corridor or the Slauson Corridor. But then there's other ones that are just kind of citywide, or particular neighborhood citywide. And this is also, it started in 2015 and it's going through 2022. But because of the pandemic, it's obviously been expanded because they lost some time due to the pandemic. So it is specifically to plant trees in more of the disadvantaged communities, right? Than it is in areas where they already have a large canopy of trees. And there is a lot of information. I'm trying to see if I can find like a website that I'll be able to share of where they're actually have like the outcome of what's already been planted.
And since you said you live in Boyle Heights and
Yes.
you've seen this program already been rolled out, are those jobs for planting and maintaining these allocated to community members or people that reside in Boyle Heights, or are they allocated out to larger contracts with larger corporations that are going ahead and taking up this portion of this $2+ million?
Yeah, so that was one of the questions that I asked when when I was participating on this, and it actually, the tree planting is actually happening by the LA Conservation Corps. And so they are individuals, traditionally from underrepresented communities that are looking for opportunities to have a career. And so they actually go through LA Conservation Corps, and that's who is helping to plant the trees, and they get paid to also come water them and whatnot. So it's community members, tends to be from underrepresented areas. Maybe for the infrastructure Boyle Heights grant that there was, it's not necessarily only individuals from Boyle Heights that are being engaged for these positions, but it's definitely includes individuals from Boyle Heights.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah, of course.
I just want to add on that. You don't have to respond to it, but I think that's one of the main problems, Wendy. I think that you've probably seen in there. A lot of this money goes to the nonprofit sector. And the nonprofit sector is not always representation, doesn't have the representation of our community or the best interests of our community. And I think that's a huge problem when they're not put out into our communities, that if we do have nonprofits in our neighborhood, or if we can create a system where our community members can actually access that money for real jobs in the community, to take more pride into it, I think that's a big difference to the administration cost, because some of those nonprofits, the directors pay themselves, crazy amounts of money. Some people in the path nonprofit for housing, they get like $240,000 to $300,000 a year. And that comes out of some of these, the administration costs, the overhead costs on some of these grants. So I think that's something to take into consideration. I know they don't want to talk about it. Like Dydia says, there's a bunch of bureaucracy locked up into it, but I think it's something to highlight because it's very important for our communities to know that, because they're all around us in every portion of government. And far too often they're given the authority to speak on our behalf when they are not elected representatives. They're literally corporations.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to throw that out because I see that a lot in our community, and I seen it always attacking disadvantaged communities. And I think it's unfair. But we'll close it with that because we had enough on this. But I think the one thing we will have, if more committee members or people out in the public have more of this stuff and more interest, let me know, and we can always set Wendy up in an agenda item to bring maybe a better presentation on the items that we got emailed, which is the green plan. And then we can all write our questions down. So review it, and then we'll invite Wendy back and have a specific item on this, and hopefully try to bring up more community outreach to bring it to their attention so they can hear some of this stuff. But I want to thank you, Wendy, for your time and the responses.
Of course, yeah. And as always, I'm available for questions. Vincent and Diego have my email address in case I say it too fast, but it's wendy.castro@lacity.org. Please feel free to email me, reach out to me. If it's a phone call that you want, that I usually do have to schedule a couple of days ahead of time. But if it's, just a quick question or you want me to look into something, please email me and let me know. I think it was Melanie who was talking at the beginning during committee member reports and you were sharing about the asphalt, right? So if you can send me a little bit of information about that, I would be happy to look into it as well.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Support with that. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, we'll close item 5, which is government reports, and we'll move on to discussion and possible action on Paseo del Rio project update, Community Advisory Council appointing committee members. Let me just bring up the flyer. Can everyone see the flyer?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just bring this up. Okay, so I'm bringing this particular item up because the issue of the 100-acre partnership was supposed to be a partnership with city agencies, right? So the neighborhood council is a city agency, but we were never included in any of the partnership discussions or anything. So this particular project is for Paseo del Rio Park, which is the old G2 site, Taylor Yard, which has also a lot of problems with contaminants, right? And they came up with, I think it was the Lee Andrews group, who they also partnered out to do the outreach or contracted out to do the outreach. But in this park that belongs to the residents of Los Angeles, which is all of us, right? Us being the neighboring community, it only targeted people in Cypress Park, Glacel Park, Elysian Valley, and Atwater Village. And the council basically would be taking on the issues of its design, the concept, its effects on the public, what the public wants to see in their park system. So I wrote an email. This is on my own time away from the council, but I think we need to write one as a council to them to open it up to us in Lincoln Heights. And we should have a right to be able to discuss this and be able to appoint members, and for it not to be so isolated with just these 4 neighborhood councils or communities, because it's really an asset for the whole city. And that if this goes on with just 4, then that disenfranchises everyone else on what we think of what should be happening there, whether we have possibly issues that, like, for example, the Proposition O water quality. That's a huge thing about water quality that we're going to get into earlier in the agenda, that might not be brought up there because people are not aware of the water quality issue, or the contaminants that were found, or the history of contaminants, like Melanie was bringing up about Avenue 34, right? About the sites being open, the sites being used while there's no remediation or no cleanup has ever been done. So these issues are very concerning because literally the city and these agencies are exposing people to this land that has never been cleaned before. And so I think for us to be part of it is important, because we do come from that perspective of we want to engage with the public. We want to make people understand these are the things that we need to ask, right? Because these are all the agencies together that we need, but then we're excluded from the conversation. So I just wanted to bring this up to everybody's attention on the council, on the committee, and also I'm going to email it out to all the council members. And if anything, I think we should reach out to the Lee Andrews group and really just stress out on how important it is for us to be included in and really the whole city. I don't think it just should be us. I think how all of them should be included, but particular from our council, how we need to be included in the, what was it called? The Community Advisory Committee, and its importance. That way, if it's opened up to us, then we can come back to this sustainability committee, and we can open it up to our general board and ask if we can appoint 1 or 2 members to actually be at these meetings, so that we can also give our input and what we would like to see there and our concerns. So I just wanted to throw this out, and I'll email this to everybody because the information's on the screen now if anybody wanted to email, but I'll definitely get it out to everyone to email because I'm in communication with them now, and they haven't got back to me on whether they would allow us to appoint or not. So I'm waiting for the response on that. But I want to get a letter hopefully by our next meeting drafted up so we can approve it in committee and then send the request. But if they allow us to be part of it, then we will just only be appointing at our next sustainability committee. So I just want to know if anybody has any questions on it. Board members or committee members, sorry. Okay, I don't see any committee members. Do anybody in the public have any? Mr. Adams?
Yeah, exactly. How soon can we go ahead and get like perhaps this on the agenda?
Well, this right now, what I'm waiting for is for them to respond. I already have an email out to them, and I got one response, basically just saying that they're going to respond within the week. If they allow us to appoint members from our council, then we would be okay. We'd get what we want, right? In the event that they don't, then I'm going to request that we, on our next meeting at the Sustainability Committee, that a letter, we'll have a letter created. It'll be discussed. And then if we approve it at our committee, it'll then go to the general board, approved by them, and then we'll be able to send it out formally requesting directly now that we want to be part of it by a majority of our board.
All right.
It's a process, but I mean, that's the way to do it. But right now, I had just made them aware of it. So I'm waiting for a response back. And if, we can cut all of that, if they just simply allow us to be part of it, right? Then at our next meeting, we'll appoint, and then the general board will ratify the 2 appointees. And then whenever the meeting starts, then we'll just bring back reports back to our board.
Okay.
Okay. And one of the other goals too is that even if stakeholders, that these meetings should also be held openly publicly. I don't know if they'll allow public comment, but at least if the public can hear us speak, they also can be aware of the concerns and what people like and don't like and opinions on the board. And if they need be, they can bring them back to the council, and we'll have 2 representatives here. So you'd be able to express your concerns, your likes, your dislikes about it, and we can take it to those meetings where you guys can hear them.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Thank you.
Okay, so we addressed this one. We'll close this item since I don't see any more public comment. And we'll move down to discussion and possible action on committee member for the Los Angeles Flood Control Channel, aka LA River water quality testing. So let me just close this. Let me open this. Give me 1 second. I'll make this fast and painless. Where was I? Okay, can everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay, wait 1 second. Let me just get this. So basically with the water quality, this is something that we were bringing up about the city and how, in 2018, when the water quality protocol came up, it's what governs right now our water quality in the LA River. So of course, the photo you guys see before you right now is just an example of things that we do in our lives or things that we may see in the street that lead the water that goes into the LA River. So if you see them watering the streets, or you have a lawn and a neighbor and the water goes in, usually goes into one of these things that if you're old enough, you'll recognize the water, the little drain sign that it leads to the ocean, no dumping. And there is an ordinance that nothing that's not rainwater can go into these drains. But far too often we see things like we see in our pictures right now, where there's an oil streak from a leaky car, someone's washing their car with chemicals that are not environmentally friendly. There may be fecal matter in the streets that get washed in, and it's just pushed down these drains that end up in the ocean. End up in our river and then in the ocean. Okay, oops, sorry. So where did I go? Oh, give me 1 second. I apologize for this. Okay, so this is the actual protocol that in March 28 of 2018, the city came up with. And in the protocol, they had the water quality testing. Prior to this, the water was tested 5 times per month. Beginning in Memorial Day of 2018, the sanitation increased the sampling twice per week. And so basically they were only testing for E. coli bacteria, right? Well, part of the problem with the testing is, and you gotta imagine this and put it into your head. So when you go to the river and you go to the Elysian Valley section of the river, You go down and you stick your water sampler in. You pull that sample up, you walk up, you get in your truck, you go to the lab, and then you do the test, and then you post it on the website. Well, the problem with that is that as soon as you get to the lab, the water in the sampling section that you're in, it's moving. It's a river. That sampled section is probably in the Pacific Ocean by the time that happens. And by the time it's posted, that area has a whole different reading of bacteria and chemicals in it. And so with just by doing it and increasing it twice per week, it really didn't solve the problem of people being exposed to some of these possible chemicals that might be in the water, or fecal matter, or E. coli, right? And they were all tested at the same time. So there was no reading that you could say north of you, you had it, in the middle of you, or down south that you had the E. coli. You really couldn't monitor it. This is why it was getting kind of crazy with it, but this is the current protocol for it. Now, we had issues with it as we looked at it into it more, because they came up with a 3-light system, which everyone knows what green is green, you go, yellow's to be caution, and red is to be hold on, right? Don't go in. But they also added this: at all times, the water quality may be impaired. And that is because they knew that the water was basically running. You could not test it every second so that the people could actually be safe in it. Kayak, eat the fish out of it, right? All these recreational activities that have been there before they created the new protocol and to today. But the fact that they added in the wording really eliminates the green and yellow protocol, because at all times it's impaired, not just when it's yellow, green, or red, and it's impaired to a point where we don't know. So we had to dig a little bit deeper to find out what did this mean. And this is just because in the state we wrote some of these things like this, right? So I knew that as soon as you say at all times, you have to go to what LA Sanitation has, which is their disclaimer, right? And when we go into the disclaimer, there's 3 parts of the disclaimer that should worry all of us and anybody in the city, which is the city of Los Angeles and LA Sanitation shall not be responsible for any errors or omissions contained at this website, and reserve the right to make changes without notice. Accordingly, all city bureau and any third-party information is provided as is. In some ways, just with that, we give these city agencies all our taxpayers' money to hire scientists, to hire the professionals to set these guidelines and policies and protocols, and then to run them effectively to protect us. As is basically tells us that all of us have to become those scientists that we pay for, and that there are signs along the river right now that say enter at your own risk, which just means that if you're walking there and you really want to go in, you really have to say, well, hold on, I need to be a chemist, a biologist. I need to find out all these things on my own. When we have agencies that are supposed to be providing this, not providing disclaimers. The second was LA Sanitation provides no warranty, either expressed or implied, as the accuracy or reliability, completeness of furnished data. If you find any errors or omissions, we encourage you to report them to the webmaster using the feedback form. So I've done this with no response, as I sent them everything that you guys are seeing here today. And then in no event shall the city of Los Angeles or LA Sanitation be liable for any damages whatsoever. In particular, LA Sanitation shall not be liable for special, direct, consequential, incidental damages, or damages or loss of profits, loss of revenue, loss of use arising, and so on and so forth. And it's basically telling us that we are on our own when we look at these resources. Even though they're public resources, they don't want to be responsible at all. And they do cover themselves to some degree. The way I see this is that protocol that at all times the body of water is impaired is a legal stance where they say, we told you it was impaired and you went into it by yourself, and you cannot sue us because all this disclaimer stuff, which is tragic on the water. And this is currently going on right now in the LA River. The second part was they don't really test for a large amount of contaminants. So we had a letter writing campaign to Adam Schiff, because what we found in the water in some of our private tests was glyphosate, which is, if anybody stays up late at night or has seen on TV, had this huge lawsuit against it. which it deemed that it was a carcinogenic. So Adam Schiff wrote to Los Angeles basically saying that the city should stop using glyphosate, or Roundup is what it is, to do the weed killing in the river. To this day, we have not heard anything back from them, and this may lead to one of our letters from the Sustainability Committee to request if the city is continuously using glyphosate in the LA River and ignored all the warning letters we sent them and the warning requests from Adam Schiff to call for the ban. And it goes more to show that they would rather put us at risk than not. And in this letter, we'd also request that we don't just test for E. coli, that we test actually for what Prop 65 tests for, which is almost all the chemicals you could name on the planet that are around us. Why? For the very first picture that we've seen, which we do see that a lot of the chemicals enter into our water system because of human interaction, but also just natural, like brake dust, oil from a car. It all seeps into the LA River. And I think this is like an eye-opener, wake up, not only to look at the legalities of it, but also to look at how careless and reckless they are currently in the water and still allowing people to just freely go in there and promote it as a safe zone, right? I just brought that up because I wanted people to know, because it entered into some of the stuff on how nonprofits come in and basically say it's okay, and they're not regulated. They don't have any knowledge or done any of the studies of water quality, but we have this that the city released. And just by this document alone, no one really should be in the river, but they are. And I think it's a responsibility for us as committee members to not just look at this information, but to analyze it yourselves, to come up with your own conclusion on the information, but to come together in a consensus on how we can get a letter to bring these concerns up, right? Because all of this is off their website. But I always tell people, grab the information, take it, research it, and bring it back and help get a letter that we can, get a consensus on, so we can send it, because these concerns will affect people in our neighborhoods that use the river. And when they open up the river, like they are planning to do right here at where I live, where Downey Park is, we will have river access where our kids will then be able to go directly unattended into the river. And we all know that kids are very adventurous. They want to go to the water. And that's one of my major concerns throughout the stretch of the river right now, is who is really going to be responsible if something happens to them. And I don't want to find out 20 years later that this could have been preventable, as we found in a lot of other cases. So I'll leave it at that. And then we'll open it up to board members' questions or comments if they have any. Diego?
Yeah, I'm still formulating my thoughts behind this, so take what I say with a grain of salt, because I'm still processing everything, but we only have a certain amount of time to, discuss this as a board. So this is all still raw, is what I'm trying to say. But I totally understand the concern here. Like, there's totally, the LA River is really one of the only open spaces for communities like Lincoln Heights to recreate. And so to have the city not be liable for our safety in interfacing with the river is totally a concern, totally an environmental justice issue. When I think about how to address it, it's so challenging in my head, because I understand the river is functionally a stormwater system. And like you were mentioning, Vincent, the effluence of the river occurs in pulses, and it's always in flux, right? And so how do we go about addressing water quality issues when, for instance, glyphosate, that's a citywide issue. It's used all over. It's used in people's lawns. When it rains, all that glyphosate enters the river. And so to address the glyphosate issue, that will take a citywide ban. I also know the Army Corps of Engineers uses it in the river, as that article was referencing, to get rid of all the invasive plants and pretty much any vegetation, because they don't want the water to slow down. They want the water to function as a stormwater system, right? And, vegetation growing along the banks just slows the movement of water. And so they're very vigilant about using glyphosate all over the place just to keep weeds and even native plants down that just want to grow through the cracks of the river. And so I am just trying to think about what is our agency as a council, and like how do we go about an issue that is really just an artifact of the river being channelized itself. And because it's hard, it's a hard one in my head. But I totally invite like Chente, your leadership and your insight, because you clearly have been doing this for a long time, to advise the council and what we can say and how we can empower our community to have greater agency over access and safety to the river. Because I don't think our community wants to not have access to the river, but I also want to make sure that we keep the community safe from all the dangers present within the river, as it functions as a storm water system. So I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No, you make perfect sense, because that's what the response I get from a lot of people is, how do we do it? And for me, and this is just my opinion on it, and like I say, here we respect everyone's, right? For me, it's really understanding that because of human interaction, it is all our fault. There's not one person we can blame. It's all of our fault, because we drive, we may have dropped something at some point, throw something on our lawns that we didn't know, directly or indirectly, but that the river had been turned. We have lost the river a long time ago. When you look at the process of why they called it a river, I mean, they totally bypassed. This is a state thing now, right? When they changed the name, they added the word navigable, just to create what we have today. Without that word, it doesn't trigger recreation or anything that we're seeing today. So it was obviously without any study. There was no environmental impact study on it. That we probably could never change what we've done as humans to the river, to turn it really into a flood control channel. That's what we've done to it. And in doing so, the infrastructure that we have now, if we don't eradicate that infrastructure to bring that water to the river, then we're going to be suffering from floods. So we're stuck in that aspect too, about bringing it. So it's a really tough thing, but I think at the end of the day here, and I think this will resonate mostly with moms, because again, I dealt with a lot of guys and they're just like, we want to fish and kayak, and it's not to say that dads don't care about their kids, but moms see it from a different perspective of that you're exposing their health, safety, and welfare. And we're not dealing with stuff that's like, well, they may have a little issue. We're dealing with pharmaceuticals. We're dealing with things that can stunt growth, can stunt the development of their brains with lead, mercury, DDT, all these crazy chemicals that are inside our river today. And I think that's what really should be challenging. Our fiduciary duty is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our people before we can say recreation. Recreation, and this hurts me to say because I'm a fisherman and I fought these things, never thought I'd ever be on the other end of this, but for me, recreation is going to be secondary to the health, safety, and welfare of our people. And if it meant that we had to shut it down and figure out a way to clean it first before we can allow people to safely go in, I think that's why the city takes those positions, because I think that they know they can't. And they know that if they bring it to light, that's awareness, and that can lead into litigation. But that's not a reason to leave the people's health and safety at their own risk. I think that's disingenuous of our city, and I don't think it represents how its citizens would feel, and it's being represented wrong in my opinion, because I don't want to see any child get hurt. And I've seen these cases where some of these chemicals, and we work with Aaron Brockovich on some of these things, where you may not see the problems now, you may see them 20 years down the road, okay, with reproductive issues and all these other things, because nobody said nothing, or because they wanted to fish in the river. And sometimes I think as people, we really got to look at this. And again, this is what this venue is about. Let's hear people. Maybe the majority are going to say, yeah, Vincent, we can deal with that, but we want to fish and kayak and we want to see the birds and everything. That's the price they're willing to pay for it. At that point, we can't say anything, right? As elected officials, we got to do what the the public wants. But it may stir up a lot of people to say, no, we don't want that. And how is that going to affect it? And then, and that would direct us in the direction we should go in and how we should continue the discussion, right? And I think that's what we facilitate here, is that discussion and also cultivating ideas, because I think our position is going to evolve as more people get involved. And so I think if we keep an open mind and listen to people, I think eventually our group and community, and maybe even bigger when we can take it to the ARC to make it a bigger issue citywide, that we can then have a better understanding on our position and also be together on it, you know, to try to get as close as we can to a consensus on what we want in the river and figure out how we're going to attack it that way. But you do bring up good points, Diego. Anybody else? Melanie, Nancy? If not, I'll open it up to the public. If anybody in the public wishes to question or comment. Okay, not seeing any. Oh, what was that? Diego.
Sorry, I really would. I'll be quick. I really would love to hear what like Melanie and Nancy think. Just because this also certainly has repercussions for like the Arevalo diversion project, which we heard last time. Because you know the whole concept behind the diversion project is to reduce these coliforms in the river, right? To make it safer, quote unquote, so it can pass the Clean Water Act. And I believe the Clean Water Act has only been triggered because of that, like navigable. I can't speak. You know what I'm saying? Because of that, yeah, because of that sort of new terminology attached to the river. And so, like, yeah, I would love to hear what they think, because like it's hard to. The whole Arevalo Foundation and that whole side of the Arevalo, for instance, like Highland Park, like Pasadena, Arevalo Neighborhood Council, they all voted like in favor of opposing the diversion project. But to oppose it would also have repercussions for communities downstream, right? Who will be exposed to this ongoing exposure to coliforms from the Arevalo during the summertime. So, and you know, they oppose it under the premise of them wanting the Arevalo to return to its natural form, which of course will, you know, reduce the coliforms present in the water, but that's a decades long process. And so what happens to our communities in the meantime? Do you know what I mean?
No, I get you. That's one of the things that we're bringing up is the amount. I worked on the what was it called? Now you got me, Diego, with I have memory loss here. We worked on the water projects in Florida for the aquaponic ones, right? And we did them in well, I didn't do them. Another agency did them in Echo Park, and they work well in Florida. They don't work so well here in the system, and that's because of the chemicals. But they do need to do a study on that. And one interesting, because I see Melanie's hand up, well, just one interesting for all of us to understand too, because they did this presentation at the ARC. DWP came in and said this, that even though we have these projects, these diversion projects, this is another problem with the water that they're thinking of doing with it. So they're thinking of capturing the LA River water and sit down for this one. And they're going to divert it so that we can have drinking water and turn it into actual drinking water. So there is going to be a fight against, should we have the LA River and what's planned for it? Or is it going to be captured for drinking water? And that I'm bringing DWP to the Sustainability Committee to have some conversations about that, because that will affect the plans for the LA River. And water right now, according to the mayor, is number one because of how much we're losing and how fast we're losing it. But it is also, there's not a lot of science behind reclaimed water. And the science that's there is alarming. So with that, I'll leave it with Melanie. And then Nancy.
It's been a like huge education for me tonight. I wish I had like a better grasp of this entire situation, but I feel like it's another one of those, like with everything that has to do with sustainability, it's like supporting it in one direction then causes harm in another direction. And I just like, I don't know. Diego, I wish I had like more to say. I'm completely overwhelmed by this, and I don't know. I don't I don't have a whole lot to offer at this point. But you know, I just kind of am trying to listen to what you guys are saying and inform my opinion off of that. But this is like this goes deep, and this seems like extremely complicated again, because it's like, who if this is resolved, or if like no harm is caused by this, what does that change into, and then who is then harmed because of that? Like I don't know if I'm making sense, but anyways.
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
you are.
yeah. But that's why I wanted to hear everyone's thoughts, because it's like a systemic issue that has like ramifications in every node.
Right.
So it requires a lot of deliberate thought behind it. So anyways, sorry for taking the space.
Nancy.
Hi. Well, I have to agree with Melanie that I don't know enough, but whenever I think about the LA River and what its purpose is, right, to like move rainwater away as soon as possible, just seems outrageous to me, being from the city and learning since I was a toddler to conserve water. And we're just like flushing it out as soon as possible. You know, my ears totally perked up when you said something about saving the water and cleaning it for, you know, making it useful for us, which I think is definitely what we should be doing with rainwater. But I know that that's going to be very expensive, and there's a whole lot of issues to that are beyond my understanding. But I think that's a good way, a great direction for the city of LA to move in.
Thank you, Nancy. And I think it's definitely complicated. That's why I think a lot of people rather avoid it. But I think that's part of the problem, is that we can't avoid it anymore. You know, this is what our kids will inherit. You know, I don't have kids. I always say our kids, but I was a kid at one time, and I wish that the people before us had set these grounds that we didn't have to work so hard for, right? And that we know they're not going to be perfect, but that they go in the sense that they would build a healthier future for the next residents that are going to be here, which in some cases are our kids, right? And me, you know, we plan to grow old in LA. This will affect us too in the long run. So I think that's why I think these discussions are important, and we can continue to have them to get more information and then more questions. So if you guys want to see this on a future item, I'm going to bring in DWP to talk more about how their approach to capturing the water and then using it as drinking water and their process. And I don't want to be the rainer on the parade, but looking at all of this, it's complex because of what we have done to the land. It's the reasons why Avenue 34 is contaminated, Paseo del Rio. If people know the history of LA, the old Duhaney fields were oil fields. This whole area was just a disaster. And it's amazing that we have just covered it up with buildings and disregarded a lot of this stuff. And little by little, as we see these projects come up in our neighborhoods, we're seeing the consequences of what was left behind by the people of yesteryear, right? And we're either going to ignore it, create laws or regulations, or even downgrade standards to just pass it through, versus actually figure out how can we stop it from a next generation suffering and wasting time discussing it, when we should be saying, you know, thank God that Melanie, Diego, and Nancy, and Mr. Adams, and everyone else solved the issue. And now we have a generation free of those problems. But, and then if anybody's welcome in our agenda items, we want to submit them, let us know, and we can rehab this discussion again so we can get more people involved. But thank you all for your input and all that, and please stay engaged. That's the best we can do. So we'll close that up because we didn't have anybody in the public. And let's end with item 7. And I think we should table the retitling unless anybody disagrees right now, or does it? Well, let me open it up. Discussion and possible action on updating on retitling the Sustainability Committee and creating an explanation statement on why we changed it, and then approve. So we don't have the statement, But is there anything else anybody wanted to look at? Maybe when we get the title, it'll help us write. And I can start the writing and send it out and get everyone's opinion on it. And then once we create it, we can send it to the executive committee. But I know Diego, what did you say in the beginning?
Oh, the title I proposed?
Yes.
Environmental Justice and Resiliency Committee.
Environmental justice. Yes.
Yeah. And the only comment I had for that, because I totally understood what people were mentioning in against the retitling that I proposed, was the resiliency is also certainly one of those like fluff words, right? Like that's kind of used almost at this point synonymously with sustainability. But I see, when I think of resiliency, I think about, our community and our community's resiliency, and particularly in regards to like our autonomy as a community. Like, under greater climate change, like we want to be a climate resilient community. We want to make sure that we can continue to live and breathe and survive and thrive in our community. And so that's partly why I suggested attaching that, but it could just simply be Environmental Justice Committee. That's the same sort of idea. Yeah.
What do you think, Nancy or Melanie? Because I agree with Diego.
I like it. I love the resilience aspect of it.
Melanie?
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't have a problem with that at all. I like what that, like you said, Diego, what it really says something about our community. So yeah, I'm completely for that. I love that name.
Okay, so then I'll make the motion to accept our new name as say it, Diego, because I'm getting
Environmental Justice and Resiliency Committee. But I also want to hear from, are we going to hear public comment as well?
Yes, before we vote, we will make sure we go to public comment.
Okay, cool. Perfect.
Oh, can I point out another reason why I like it so much? Also, wait, what is the whole name? Environmental justice, right? So it's also hopefully, well, to me, it sounds like we'll also be holding the city accountable for, for any injustice that we are witnessing or experiencing.
Oh no,
That's
that's
it.
for sure. Yeah, no, I think that's one of the things that got me, like that environmental. It was what Diego said, like resilience, because they use it so much, and like, yeah, you're using all this stuff and you say resilience, but we cannot be resilient when the system's against us. But I think in our statement letter, we can hype it up a little bit, like Diego said. It's about our survival. It's about us thriving and coming to the end, to try to proclaim our freedom, right? That this is why the injustice is here, because we're highlighting the injustice for our survival, basically. But I agree with Diego. So I'll make the motion, and then I don't think we'll have board discussion and we can go to public comment. But I make the motion to accept the new titling from the Sustainability Committee to the Environmental Injustice and Resilience Committee. Do I have a second?
I second, but my original title was Environmental Justice, but we can certainly put Injustice.
Well, was it justice? No, I want to put it the way you put it.
Well,
what do you guys think? Injustice or justice?
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
Environmental justice.
Just injustice?
No, justice.
Okay.
Justice.
Yeah. I was a little. I took a.
Sorry,
I took a double take. I was like, oh, are we pursuing environmental injustice? But yeah.
Okay, let me reframe the motion. Environmental Justice and Resilience Committee. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Nancy seconds. All in favor, say aye. Oh, 1 second. Let me just open it up to public comment. I'm already jumping the gun here. Okay, if there's anybody in the public that wishes to make a comment, you can do so by raising your hand or pressing *9 if you're on the landline. Okay, there's no public comment, so we can take it to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
I
Aye. All those
I
opposed?
I, oh, I mean, I, like I.
Let the record reflect that we have a unanimous vote and there were no. Oh, Melanie, you're too much. Well, congratulations to you all for renaming the committee, because I think now it just feels, more prideful that we're in it because we got an environmental justice now. So hopefully the community feels the same way, and I'll make sure to write this up and send it up. And if we can just all work on the statement and start it, it doesn't have to be big, but it should be something, maybe a 2-liner that's on our, it'll go on our agendas now. Very short and sweet, and see what we can come up with at our next meeting. Just to give a little subject line on it. Okay, we'll close item 8, and I'm glad we did it. Okay, and then we open item 9, discussion and possible action on sustainability committee agenda items. Is there anything anybody, and these are board committee members, anything that you wish to see onto the future? Now, even if you don't have nothing to be put on here, you can either email me or Diego. This is both the public and committee members can submit agenda items, like Melanie had item Avenue 34. If you want that to be a discussion item and you have somebody that wants to speak on it, or you want to, speak and highlight it and get a letter or whatever you want to recommend, you can do so by either send it to me or Diego, and we can put it onto the agenda. Diego.
Oh, yes. This is partly why it's tricky. It's always tricky for me, anyways. My employer, Northeast Trees, environmental nonprofit, works in East LA, Northeast LA, 30 years. They want to present to our board, like general board, about a greening project that we have. So I don't know how to go about that, whether it comes here or whether it goes directly to our general board. But they want, the Northeast Trees is going to plant over 1,000 trees in parks like Elysian Park, Debs Park, Ascot Hills Park, and it has repercussions for our community. And so they want to hear what our community wants and that kind of thing, and just talk about our work. In addition to being more transparent about flat top, they want to talk about flat top. So how do we, I lean on you, Vincent, on how do you think that's the best way to go about that? It'll be a brief presentation.
So I think if it's just a present, are they looking for a letter of support or anything? Or
Oh, no. Just a presentation to inform the community and get some insight and advice on how to go about things. But yeah.
So those that particular one, you could just send to the executive committee and request that it be put onto the, what is it? They can do a presentation. I would suggest a presentation, 5 minutes, if that's all they need. And then as long as, if there's like a slideshow or anything they're going to show, usually 5 minutes and then another 5 minutes for Q&A. But if
okay, cool, that sounds good.
If it's something short, like a minute or two, then they can bring it up under community announcement.
I believe it'll be longer than a minute, so I'll just take it up with XCOM and put it on the next agenda. And I want to be transparent with everyone. I work there, so but I doubt there will be a vote to it, so I won't need to accuse myself. But
the only time you have to say anything like that is when there's money, and then
perfect. Okay.
And then you cannot be involved at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even in these committees are like no. So
absolutely, yeah, we'll do.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, send it to executive and we'll deal with there. And these committees are usually for things that we have to discuss in detail and get everything done and write a letter and then get it up to the executive. So anything like that we do down at this level, and it should come through here unless it's expedited and then you bring it up at this item. And if it's something that needs to be done because the hearing's like literally Saturday and we got to get it onto the general board, it can actually bypass the sustainability and go directly to executive and onto the general board for approval. I'll write these things down because I think everyone has the same questions and it's hard to remember all this stuff. I don't know how I do it, but I know it's hard. But I'll make sure to write it down on how to get things on the agenda and send it out to everybody. Okay, so I don't see anybody else with any future items for sustainability. And I'm also going to send out just a protocol for sustainability for both committee members and the public on our timelines to submit, because we have to adhere to the Brown Act and our posting. And Diego's been doing our postings, but I would like, if anybody, can take it, unless Diego doesn't mind, but to share the responsibility of posting so it doesn't just fall on one person. I don't mind doing the agendas and collecting the information and sending out the emails to committee members. But if at any time, maybe Diego can't do it, or we can circulate, one person does it one month, the next month, so we can get on like a little pattern for it, and we can discuss where the posting's at or anything like that. I just want to make sure everyone has a shared invested interest in it. Diego?
Yeah. I'm. Thank you for doing that. I'm happy to continue posting. It's not a problem for me at all. I walk by the library every day, so I just do it during my walks. But the only thing that I wanted to make sure that I was clear on is have we figured out a regular meeting time, just so that way I can be sure to post 72 hours in advance, so and plan it accordingly.
Is everybody okay with this meeting time, or does anybody think that a better date for them is a Thursday?
It's good for me.
Yeah, good for me too.
You too, Diego?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll keep it on we are on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. 6 p.m.
Okay, cool.
Is 6 p.m. good with everyone? Because I know sometimes you need just that extra half an hour to sit down and just relax a little bit and pop back into reality of the council business. But I'll leave it up to you guys. I'm flexible in those hours, anytime after 6.
Yeah, same. Any time really works for me.
Nancy, you're okay too?
Yeah, I mean, this time works, 6:30 works.
Okay. How about you, Diego? Because I know you probably get out like around 6 or.
I have a very odd hours. But yeah, no, 6 works good. Generally speaking, 6 is good. So I'm happy to stick with this time.
Okay, so we'll have it the third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. And then I'll make sure to do all our Zoom meetings at that time. I'll put it in our Zoom system to have in our agenda. So it'll give us all a time just to remember. I'll send out the due dates for your agenda submissions. And then me and Diego, well, for right now, until we find someone, Diego, is it okay to work with you on them just so that we have 2 people working on the agenda?
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Okay. And then I'll work with Diego on just getting the agenda set, and then we'll get it posted. Okay, we'll close item 9, and I will motion for adjournment. Is there a second?
I second.
I was expecting to hear that faster than all the other ones, but Nancy, Diego seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Right.
All opposed?
Aye.
There's none. Okay, everyone. Thank you. Our meeting officially ends at 7:35, and thank you, committee members. Thank you, Mr.
Bye,
Adams.
guys.
Bye, thank you so much.
Take care.
You too.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.